What's up? It's Rowan here from Smart TV, and this video goes out to all parents. And every year I speak to hundreds and thousands of parents, and they always have questions. Questions about how they can best support their child and teenager through the school year to make that school year, the best school year ever, to help their child reach their potential. And so this video is for you as a parent. I'm going to be sharing 3 strategies, super simple strategies that you can use as a parent to work with your child, be it them being at primary school or even a teenager, going through the HSC, to help them make this year their best school year ever. Let's jump in and explore these 3 strategies. So the first thing that you can do to help your child or teenager to make this their best school year ever is so simple. It's to have a conversation with them about what their goals are going to be for the school year. So often students just sort of cruise through a school year and they don't particularly have well articulated goals. And the reason they don't is that in most cases they might not have actually reached the maturity levels yet to actually be able to think through effectively how to set a goal. And so that's where you as a parent can actually come in and make and support them in actually setting these goals. So really simply, what I'd love you to do is at the beginning of this school year, or I'd encourage you to do, is to have a conversation about, what's going to make the year a great year. Right? It's a nice, friendly and safe question to ask them. To ask your child or teenager at the end of the year, if they were looking back on the school year, what would have made it a success? What would they be really happy with, no regrets? And get them to sort of talk through what that might look like. Now, you're going to have to ask a number of clarifying questions, to dig, because they might say, oh, I want to do well at school. It's like, great, what does that actually mean? And so the goal is to work with them to be able to articulate what success might look like. And this doesn't just have to be limited to a school front. In fact, it's particularly powerful to get them to think more broadly and more holistically. So, what are they going to try to do at school? What do they want their goals for school to be? But maybe if they're playing sport or dance or music, or they're involved in extracurricular projects, leadership, what are the goals they might want to achieve by the end of the year? And then once you've had that conversation with them, actually get them to write it down. Really, really important. Really, really critical, so that it's not just something that's in their head, it's in your head, but it's something that they've got ownership on and they're writing down and committing to for the year. And the purpose of this is to actually give them a direction, to actually propel them forward so they've got something to work towards rather than just cruise through the school year. So the second thing that you can do to help your teenager make this year their best school year ever is to help them better manage and deal with distractions. Now, this is possibly going to be a bit of a prickly, pointy and challenging thing to do, but I'm sure as a parent you already know that the phone, the internet, music are some of the biggest distractions that your teenager is grappling with. And to be honest, the distractions have a huge cost. Every time that, anyone as human beings, we lose focus, right, from the work that we're doing, it takes 23 minutes and 15 seconds. That's right, 23 minutes and 15 seconds to reorientate and get back into a zone of focus. So one of the biggest things that's going to really stand in the way of your teenager really reaching their potential this year is distractions and their ability to deal with them. Now, truth is that we all have limited willpower. It's like fuel, our willpower. And as we go through the day, we run lower and lower on that fuel and that willpower. And so by the time your teenager comes home from school, their willpower tank is already pretty low. And so the challenge is they're not going to generally be disciplined enough or have sufficient willpower in the tank to make good decisions about how they actually respond to these distractions. How they respond to their phone and the notifications, how they respond to the internet, how they respond to the TV and friends and whatever else that might be a distraction in their life. And so a really critical thing that as a parent, I'd recommend that you do is support them in identifying how they can build a system, and a system is really important in their life, to reduce these distractions, or at least push them to the side so they can create distraction-free study zones. Now, a couple of suggestions here is, to have a conversation with them about, their phone, and perhaps actually giving you their phone or removing their phone from the zone of study that they're in for a certain period of time, an hour, 2 hours, 3, however long they're studying for. It may be installing some applications on their computer. There's an app called Self-Control, for example, on a Mac. and there's versions for PC as well that enables you to identify websites and block them for certain times of the day or for certain lengths of time. So, I block YouTube and Facebook and a bunch of others because, they're just distracting. And when you get a little bored, you're going to want to go there. So it's about having an intentional conversation with them about, look, what are the distractions in your life? And then what's the system? Not, oh, I'll just try to, oh no, I won't do it because that won't work. What's the system that you can put in place with them and really encourage them to define that themselves so they have ownership over it? That's going to be really important. If they don't have ownership over it, it's going to be a fight. So you want to have a conversation in a way that gives them ownership so they're creating these ideas to create this system that they can use to minimize the distractions, because by far, if that's one of the things you can help them do, it will have a significant impact on the quality of the study they do, and as a result, of course, the results and the potential that they reach this school year. So the third thing that as a parent you can do to support your child and teenager through the school year to make it the most successful ever is to get them to teach you every single day. Now, here's why. At the moment, most of the time, anyone receives feedback as a student is at the wrong time, because you'll go into all your prep, you'll have an exam, and then you'll get your feedback, and you'll be looking at it and you'll be going like, I knew that. Oh, if only I'd known that before, I would have been able to fix it. And so that's the real problem. To really help a student shift their results, we need to move the feedback from after an exam to before an exam. And if you teach someone, what do you receive? You receive feedback, right? And so really, if you can get your child to teach you each day, and I'll give you some suggestions on how, what that's going to help them do is move their feedback loop from after an exam or assessment to before, because you can give them feedback before. Even just, your face looking confused when they've explained something is feedback. It's saying, I don't understand that, is feedback. It's saying, oh, look, great, can you go into more detail, is feedback. And that's the point, right? Teaching gives them a feedback loop which will help them identify what they do know, what they don't know, so they can address it before an assessment or exam to improve. Now, the other real benefit of getting them to teach you is that teaching is also one of the most powerful ways to build memory. So by getting them to teach you, they're actually going to be building their memory for the material they're teaching you more effectively. So it's actually going to be some of the most effective study they could do. Now, how can you get someone to teach you though? Right? Like particularly your child or teenager, maybe you ask them questions and they just give you a grunt, right? So a couple of ways. Number one is ask them over dinner, right? If they're going to want to come and eat food, which I'm assuming they will, right? You've got a captive audience for half an hour over dinner. Ask them questions during dinner. Number two, when you're driving and you're taxiing them around the place, right? Make it a condition of your taxi service, right? The fee for you driving them around the place is, well, you're going to have a conversation and you're going to ask them some questions about what they did. Now, some questions you can ask them, is what was the most challenging thing you learned today at school? Right? What was the most interesting thing you learned today at school? Right? If you know a specific subject that they did, don't be general and go, oh, what did you learn today? Be specific. Like, you had English today. What did your teacher share with you today? Tell me about it. And then as they start talking, try to dig in and ask them more. Now, that's one way that you can do it. A more advanced way is to actually have a conversation with them about them and say, look, such a key way to study. I'm here to help you and support you. Give me your study notes. And then using their study notes and the dot points, use them to quiz them, right? Use the headers as questions so that you can then refer to their notes and check to see how they're going and give them feedback. So use it as an opportunity to get them to teach you, but also to, in a friendly way, test them a little bit. So there's some suggestions on how you can get your child or teenager to teach you. Really, really, really powerful. And to be honest, it's so critical to make it a daily exercise because it'll help them reflect and embed the learning that they've had each day at school. So nice and simple, there's 3 strategies that you can use as a parent, right, to make this year the most successful year ever for your child. Now, what were they? Super simple. Set some goals with them. Help them get clarity on what their goals are going to be. Number 2, distractions are going to be the biggest obstacle to them, reaching their potential. So help them put in place some things to reduce those distractions. And number 3, nice and simple, get them to teach you every single day. If you have any questions about how to support your child or teenager through school, leave them in the comments below. We'd love to help you. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We do videos every single week. So I will see you next week.